You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. America is a nation founded on the promise of liberty and justice for all. Yet the lived reality for Black Americans has long stood in stark contrast to that lofty ideal. For centuries, racism in the United States has shaped not only the lives of individuals but the very fabric of the society itself. From the earliest days of colonization, the transatlantic slave trade forcibly uprooted millions of Africans from their homelands, condemning them to lives of brutal exploitation and dehumanization. On plantations across the South, enslaved men, women and children labored under inhuman conditions, their worth measured only in the profits they could generate for their enslaver. Despite the abolition of slavery in 1865, the legacy of racism did not simply vanish with the stroke of a pen. Instead, it morphed, embedding itself in new forms: black codes, Jim Crow laws, redlining and systemic discrimination that denied Black Americans equal access to education, housing and employment. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s shone a glaring spotlight on these injustices, challenging segregation and disenfranchisement. Visionaries like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Malcolm X and countless others risked and often gave their lives for the cause of racial equality. Their struggles forced America to confront the ugliness of its racial divide. Yet even in the 21st century, racism persists in both overt and subtle forms. The disparities are evident in every corner of society, from the mass incarceration of Black men to the racial wealth gap. From disparities in healthcare to disparities in educational opportunities. The promise of the American dream remains elusive for too many. Statistics paint a stark picture. Black families hold a fraction of the wealth of white families, a gap that has remained largely unchanged for decades. Black students often attend underfunded schools, limiting their opportunities before they even reach adulthood. In the criminal justice system, Black Americans are more likely to be arrested, charged and sentenced harshly compared to their white counterparts. Police brutality remains a visceral reminder of racial injustice. Names like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor and Eric Garner echo in the national consciousness as symbols of a system that too often devalues Black lives. The calls for accountability have reverberated through protests, art, music and policy debates. But racism is not only systemic. It is also personal, shaping how Black people navigate everyday life. It seeps into job interviews, interactions with neighbors and even a simple walk in the park. It manifests in microaggressions, a dismissive comment, a suspicious glance that reminds Black Americans of their perceived place in society. Black resilience, however, is as much a part of this story as Black suffering. Throughout history, Black communities have built networks of support, faith and activism. They have created art, literature and music that challenge stereotypes and celebrate Black identity. The Black church historically has served as both a sanctuary and a springboard for social change, yet the fight against racism is complicated. It is not simply a matter of changing laws or electing new leaders. It requires a deep reckoning with the nation's history, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about privilege, bias and complicity. This complexity is starkly evident in the case of R. Kelly. For decades, R. Kelly, a prominent Black musician, faced allegations of sexual abuse and exploitation, particularly against allegedly young Black girls. His case is a painful reminder that oppression can take many forms and that the imperialists still believe it's not okay for a Black man to be successful in this country. In the pursuit of justice, the scales are meant to balance truth and fairness. But for R. Kelly, a Black artist thrust into the spotlight, systemic racism cast a long shadow over his legal battles. Let's explore how bias woven deep into the fabric of society made justice an uphill climb. R. Kelly, born Robert Sylvester Kelly, rose to fame as an R&B legend, crafting hits that defined a generation. Yet when allegations of misconduct surfaced, the court of public opinion was swift to judge. For Black defendants, this arena is often harsher. Studies show black individuals face greater scrutiny and bias in media portrayals, painting them as guilty before trials even begin. For Kelly, sensational headlines amplified this, drowning out calls for due process. Systemic racism in the justice system isn't new. Data reveals black Americans are incarcerated at 5 times the rate of whites, and they often receive harsher sentences for similar crimes. In R. Kelly's case, legal experts noted how his race may have influenced the narrative. Prosecutors leaned hard on resources for a robust defense, access to top-tier lawyers, expert witnesses, and investigations were strained, a common barrier for black defendants facing a system stacked against them. The courtroom itself wasn't immune. Jury selection, which is a major cornerstone of fairness, can falter under bias. Studies highlight how black defendants face juries less likely to reflect their peers, with implicit bias training often absent. For R. Kelly, this meant a steeper challenge to prove innocence, as preconceptions about race and celebrity clouded judgment. His team fought to counter this, but systemic inequities lingered. Media and public perception intertwined, fueled by a history of racial stereotypes. Black men, often depicted as dangerous or hypersexual, face unique hurdles in mounting a defense. For Kelly, this legacy amplified accusations, making a fair hearing harder to secure. Supporters argued his side was sidelined and drowned by a narrative shaped by bias rather than evidence. R. Kelly's story is a lens on a broken system. Racism, subtle and overt, tilted the scales, challenging his right to a fair trial. Justice demands equality, but sadly for many like R. Kelly, the road is long and uneven. As we reflect, we ask, how can we rebuild a system where truth and not bias prevails? Your opinions are welcome. If you want to be featured in our video releases, send us your clips by emailing them to hnnewsroom242@gmail.com or use Google Drive for larger files. Be sure to include your name and any details you'd like us to know. We can't wait to showcase your contributions. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say. To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.